Hi, this is Devin Dombrowski, and in this video tutorial I'm going to demonstrate how to manage your account in Wildlife Rehabilitation MD. When you start off, you are brought to the dashboard. And when you first create your account, of course, there won't be any information to be seen in the dashboard, so all the numbers will be 0 and there won't be anything on the graph. And what you want to do, of course, is start creating your records. And it's perfectly fine to jump right in and start creating your records, although there are some settings that you probably should consider or you may want to turn on for your account. And to get to the settings area, we'll click on our email address that we're logged in as above, and on the right you'll see the links for settings. Only super administrators and administrators have access to the settings section of the database. When we click on settings, we're brought to a screen, and the first screen has information about our account or about our organization. When you first created your account on the sign-up form, you already pre-filled in all this information. So almost certainly everything on here is already accurate and correct. But it's a good idea, of course, to check through it and make sure it's accurate. The next thing you can do is update the information for the attending veterinarian. Just put in the veterinarian's name and their DEA registration number. And if the veterinarian does not principally work at your facility and they have their own private practice somewhere off-site, you can check here and fill in information about that address. This veterinary information is only ever used when it's printed out on prescriptions. The next thing we can update is our account logo. If you go to update account logo, you can see I already have mine in, but if it was blank, we would go to choose file, choose it, say open, update, and it would populate in. It's important to know that this will only accept JPEG images, and they should be already cropped or sized to 75 pixels by 75 pixels. These images only appear at this moment in the messages section. So if I divert very quickly and go to messages, you can see here are a list of all the messages that I have received, or all the messages that I have sent. You can see that here is where the logo actually appears. And if there were replies to this message, the logo for the account that replied back would show up beside them. So going back to our settings area, after we've updated our logo, we can view the users in our account. And of course, when you first create your account, there will only be one user, the original person that created the account. So you may want to go straight ahead to add new users. Now you don't have to add multiple users to your account. You can all share the same login information. But if you wanted to create user accounts for different people and give them different permission levels, that's perfectly fine. To create a new user, we just fill in whatever the email address is, their first and last name, their permissions, and you can see on the right here an explanation of what each permission level means, a password, and to verify the password. The passwords have certain criteria that they must meet, and you can see here is an explanation of those criteria. And after we've filled in the fields, we would click on Add New User, and they would be in. And from that point on, under View Users, you would see them listed here. If we wanted to update a user, we could click on the Update User link and update their email address or name or permission level. Or, if we wanted to update a user's password, we can click on Change Password and put in the new password information. And of course, we can always delete a user as well. The next group of settings are specific to the application. The first is information about the species. The species details is information that is shared across all accounts in Wildlife Rehabilitation MD. So very quickly, if I looked up a species, look up house finches, get the details, it will show me some taxonomic information about house finches, the IUCN Red List, which if you're not familiar with it, they are the internationally recognized organization that tracks statuses about endangered or threatened, or how healthy this population of the species is kept here as well. And for a reference, you can click on this link and it will take you to the IUCN website of the page for the species we were looking at, in this case, house finches. And down below are how this species, house finches in this case, is categorized within Wildlife Rehabilitation MD. We can see where this species is a resident to, and all of the states in the United States are listed, or where is this species a native to, and all of the states are listed. Is this species protected under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act? Yes. And what generic human man-made groups is this species a part of? This is the current list. However, I'm sure it will be updated with more. And the reason this list exists, if you are wondering, is it's not particularly possible to search for all the raptors, for example. If you wanted to search in the database for raptors, you'd have to say, give me all of the hawks, owls, eagles, osprey, kites, and all the other different raptor species within one search. But once we have all of the species in the database tagged correctly with their generic groups, you will be able to search by generic group. So you'll be able to say, give me all the raptors. And the database will know who is a raptor and who isn't, or who is a seabird, who is a songbird. At the time of this recording, this data for all of the species in the database is still rough and needs to be updated. Some of them are listed as being a resident or a native to every single state, which is clearly not true. Another advantage to categorizing species correctly is when you go and create a new record. I'll briefly go to the screen. We'll want to create our new record first by identifying the species. So if I start typing in house, of course, it gives me all the species that have the word house in it. But I don't think greenhouse frogs are native to California, which is where I am right now. Or they're even found in California. Well, under settings, species details, I can go to house, greenhouse frog, and under resident distribution, I can uncheck California and say update. And now, if I went back to the new record screen and searched for a species to create a record for, greenhouse frog will no longer show on that list. So in time, when all of the species are categorized correctly for their resident and native distributions, that list will only show you who can actually be found in your area. And native distribution greatly helps to improve the annual year-end reports that get created as well. Back to application settings. The next one will be input field settings. At this time, the only input field that has any settings is the continued treatment field. And very briefly, we'll show you which field that is before we explain what happens. Continued treatment is these fields right here. So if I go to settings, input field settings, you can see that I have a few different options I can set for that field. One is I can allow the author to edit the values that are put in there, or I can allow users who have these permission levels to edit the values or to delete the values. So, to demonstrate this very briefly, if if I go to under here and I add in a new weight and a treatment, we'll say gave meds, and I click on update, that is entered into the log. And because the checkbox for allowing the author to update the value was checked, I'm allowed to click on this update link where I can make changes to the treatment. I happen to be a super administrator, so if the checkbox for allowing users to delete values was checked, then under continued treatment, I would see little delete icons that would allow me to be able to delete these fields. So you should set these how you want them to be for your account. Maybe you want people to enter their information, but nobody is allowed to make edits or updates or delete any of those entries, which technically is the most accurate way of keeping data. The next application setting involves security. Right now, the strongest security that is offered in Wormed is to block remote access. Obviously, by now you know that Wormed is online and it's an internet database. So in theory, you could access wormed.org and log into your account from anywhere in the world. However, if you are concerned about remote access and people logging into your account without your permission from offsite, you can block that. And the first thing you want to do is say restrict remote access, yes. The next thing you want to do is put in the IP address for your clinic. If you don't know what an IP address is, you can search on Google for IP address, and there's plenty of information on the internet about it. If you don't know what your clinic's IP address is, on the right there's a link right here. You can click on that and it'll take you to this site, and it says your IP address is, and you just want to copy this and paste it into there. It's very, very, very important to know, though, is your IP address dynamic or static? There's a brief description of here about what that means to you. The short story is, if you have a static IP address, then your IP address, in theory, will never change. If you have a dynamic IP address, that means that periodically your IP address will change. If that's the case, I very strongly recommend that you do not restrict remote access, because once your IP address changes and it no longer matches what Wormed knows as your IP address, you will be blocking not only the users that you want to block, but yourself, and in theory, block everybody in your account from ever logging in. If that becomes the case, make sure to go to support and click on the Contact Us link and send us an email where we can reopen your account. Once you are assured that you have a static IP address and you want to block remote access, you can update your account and be done with it from there. However, you may want it that certain people can log in. So you can allow users with these permission levels to log in. So maybe you want super administrators to be able to log in remotely, but nobody else is able to. Or maybe just a specific user or users can have remote access. In that case, you'll check these boxes and you'll be all set up. I'm going to turn off remote access for me though. The next application settings is about the APIs involved with Wormed. If you don't know what an API is, don't bother with it. Just leave it as no, make sure your tenant key is blank, click update, and you're fine with that. In quick description, an API is an ability for a developer to create an application either within Wormed or outside of Wormed to interact with the database. there are two APIs that are offered, closed and open. If you want to know more about the closed and open wormed APIs, under support and developers, there's a lot of information here, and they can go and view, developers can go and view the docs for each API. But most commonly, you won't need to allow API access. So you can leave this blank and turn off open wormed API access. The next group of settings involve extensions. If you don't know what extensions are, there is a tutorial on how they work. But in brief, wormed is meant to be very, very, very slim and simple out of the box. But it can offer the ability to expand and give you much more capabilities. So if we went to list all extensions, there are many in here that offer many different abilities, some of which allow you to store different information. Like if I activated necropsy, you can see there's now a link for necropsy here, and now I can keep necropsy information for this record. I can activate calculators, or if I wanted paper forms instead of using the digital forms, I can do that. So there are many extensions in here that offer different abilities. Some of these extensions, like autocomplete, have settings for them that need to be considered. So I activated the autocomplete extension, and now there is an autocomplete settings link on the left. So I can go there and update my settings for that extension. And just because we're here, I'll show you how autocomplete works. The way it is set up is, first you want to identify which field you want to generate an autocomplete on. And all the fields in Wormed are listed here. This one has, we're going to say, for keywords. And here is a short list of keywords that I might be using at my center. So now if I went to continued care, and here is the keywords field, if I started to type, it's going to generate an autocomplete list of words that match what I'm typing in. So I can continue to typing and narrow it down to specific words. And this particular autocomplete allows me to type in multiple values. So if I do W, it'll give me WNV for West Nile virus, and click update. And that is very briefly how autocomplete works. Some of the other extensions have settings for them as well. So if you activate an extension, pay attention to see if any settings for it show up on the left. And for those settings, you'll have to just click on the link and see what it is that you need to put together. And that's really all there is to the account settings. It's really not too complicated, I hope. If you have any questions, then please send us an email, or you can go on the top of every screen and click on Send Feedback, put in a subject, put in your feedback, and press Submit, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Hope you're enjoying Worms, and have a great day.